what now?
Fine by me. He said,
All right.
we're hot.
Which camera am I talking to then, Dakin?
You're talking to that one.
Yeah, you're talking to that one.
Okay.
Yeah, just talking to this one.
Either one's fine.
You can tell we're really organized here. Well, before I turn around here and I try to get everything set on our computer here and make sure that you guys are going to get to see some outstanding photos, I need to spend a little time and introduce our guest tonight. And those of you out there in social media land or wherever you're at, we sure appreciate the fact that you guys are dropping in to watch. This is the first edition, first show of Legendary Lives, other than when we did this last year at the Iowa Deer Classic, and it just went over so well, we decided, hey, we're going to bring it back and we're going to do this individually. And so Brady, young man that, and I say young man because I'm getting old, and so I'm older than everybody. He has a special reason for being here, and we'll get to all that in just a second, but he didn't have a good hunting season. He had a phenomenal hunting season. And so we're going to talk about the 2 deer that he harvested. But before we do that, we want to encourage everyone out there. If you guys have not downloaded the app, you need to do so, because we have some special gifts for those Legendary Lives that come here. We're doing some monthly giveaways now on Raised Outdoors, and there's just a ton of savings, and we got new videos coming, and it's growing. A bigger and bigger group of people are joining every day. So with that, I'm going to kind of turn this over, and we're going to talk to Brady about these deer. So Brady, I first want to thank you for coming, brother. I sure appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I mean, it's obviously a blessing like I couldn't ever have imagined.
Well, I mean, we all hope to kill a big deer.
Oh yeah, I mean that's why you're out there. That's why you're putting time in, and you hope and you pray, you know.
Yep.
And yeah, I moved to Des Moines like in the early part of 2015, and my wife was telling me, you need to, you know, so you're not driving 3 hours back home to bow hunt, you need to do the urban bow hunt.
So where did you move from?
I moved from country, northeast Iowa, but like New Hampton area.
Gotcha.
And she tried getting me to do the urban bow hunt, and I was like, I'll just drive back home and I'll hunt the rut, and that'll be okay. Well, it didn't really scratch the itch. So another friend that I met in 2016 was like, oh, you have to do this urban thing. I said, all right, I'll give it a shot. So last year was my first year doing the urban bow hunt.
Okay.
It's put on by Polk County Conservation, and you go in to harvest does in urban parks.
So just so that in case there's people out there that aren't familiar with it, because I know Iowa's not the only state that does it. Other states do something, but they may not call it the same thing.
Correct.
But basically, an urban hunt here in Iowa is where they open up private ground. Sometimes it's public ground. It just depends on what it is, but it usually means that it's around the city.
Yes.
And it's a place where they need, and a lot of times they don't allow any kind of gun hunting in there.
No, none.
Too populated and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So Iowa does a great deal of, they first want to get the numbers down. That's the first and foremost. But obviously some of these deer get pretty big.
Yes.
And they know that if they want people to shoot does, if they offer them the opportunity at one of those big bucks, they'll come and shoot the does.
Yes, they will. And that was my goal. Driving 3 hours was unrealistic to be able to do it, you know, every weekend in October, and then you take 2 weeks off during November. So I didn't take my wife's advice to try it. I don't know why I didn't, but
Is that was his way of apologizing if she's out there watching right now?
She is watching, and she knows.
She just said hi.
Yeah. she knows, and I thank God for her every day, because without her, none of this was possible. None of it. And so the first year that I did that urban bow hunt was last year, and you have to go through like a 21 chapter test online, and then you shoot a proficiency test, which is fairly simple, and then you put your time in to shoot does. Last year, I think I harvested 5 does. For some reason, I can't come up with a 5th one that I harvested, but we'll say I harvested 4 for sure. And basically, one doe is 20% of a buck tag.
Okay.
So, say us 5 here, we all shoot a doe. That puts 1 buck tag up for draw.
Okay.
So anywhere between 5 and 9 there's still one buck tag up for drop.
Gotcha.
So once a 10th doe gets killed, there's two
Then
buck
there's two
tags.
buck tags.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And that tag is its own special tag. Like, that doesn't resonate with anything statewide at all.
Right.
It's its own thing. So I harvested those does last year, and I had pictures of a good buck. And I was like, man, I really would like to get a crack at him if I can draw the buck tag. And August rolled around. Unfortunately, I drew buck tag, and one other guy drew a buck tag also, and we were sharing trail camera pictures. And coming up, I was kind of.
So did you get to meet these other people that were putting in? Is that how you met the other guy?
So the way you put in is shoot a doe, then your name goes into the hat. I shot 4, my name goes in the hat 4 times. I met this guy at a meeting that you go to go over, every year they have a meeting to go over the rules.
Okay.
And I met him there the first year I did it, and coincidentally he hunted where I hunted almost exclusively. So we became friends and talked and shared. He shares stands, I share my stand, locations.
Very cool.
Very, very cool. And I'd picked up a whole bunch of trail camera pictures of this deer that I wanted to harvest. I ended up naming him Billy, just, I don't know, weird. But
I'll tell you right now, you should never name deer after people.
yeah.
You know, because we got in trouble one time. We actually have a deer that we call Ralph.
Oh.
And one time we were talking about shooting Ralph and how we didn't get a shot at him. And we're in a Subway, and the lady in front of us was standing there looking at Easton and I like, what are you guys talking about shooting?
Okay, well,
So-
we named him Catfish Billy, but I just shortened it up. It's a stupid
Okay.
song on whatever.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen that.
Yeah. So picking up pictures of him, and then I had 3 pictures of this deer, just a side angle, and that was it, all last year. So I go in July and set trail cameras up, and checking them every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, because there's people in there all the time walking trails.
Right.
So they don't scatter, or they don't leave their bedding or whatever because of human scent. So I was checking them more regularly than I would have liked to, but I also wanted to know where the deer were bedding. The last pictures I had of this deer, which he was regular with the deer that I wanted to harvest. And
With Billy.
Yes,
Okay.
with Billy. And up until I had the first video on the first card pull of him, Billy was that was who I wanted to harvest. And then he was the first one on the video on the first card pull, and when he's swinging his rack back and forth, I was like, holy cow, that deer's
Good deer.
gonna be tough to pass too.
Right.
And I think the 20th or so of August was the last pictures and videos I had of him and Billy. So I feared EHD, because every time I would walk in to check, I could smell a dead animal with a west wind in 3 different spots. And I didn't see him on hoof or on camera for, I think it was just short of 30 days. And then season opened September 14th. So I climb up in the tree, not knowing because I have 4 cameras in there, not
Right.
knowing if they're alive or dead or what.
So, and we should explain to folks that that's also something different about the
yep.
urban deal, is that it actually opens at a different time.
Yes.
The rest of the state doesn't open until October 1st.
Yep.
They open some of those urban hunts at the same time youth season opens.
Right. This particular one opened September 14th, and it runs continuous to January 29th.
Yep.
And so the first sit that I had for him was where I had the first videos of them, because I figured that's where they spent the most of their
Might
time.
as well start there.
Well, every single deer that night came out 400 yards away, and I bet you I saw 20 deer. And Billy was the first one that I saw, and he was the second one that I saw. So there they are, alive, and I'm shaking in the tree 400 yards away
Right.
because they're alive, and I was just happy that they were alive. And so I'm sitting here with binoculars and running my phone through my binoculars, just trying to get videos of them. And so that night, I pulled that stand out, and I went in on the opposite side of where I saw them, basically getting in the bedroom at 3 o'clock in the morning the next morning. And it was like 95 degrees. I didn't see a deer, and I got eaten alive by mosquitoes.
Oh yeah.
So I pulled everything out, and I'm kind of frustrated. Like, man, but then thinking back, I should have known better. It's evening pattern.
Right.
So Monday would be the 16th. I went back in at noon on my lunch break, and it was 95 degrees. I figured nobody is going to be up and about 95 degrees. hung the stand where I thought the bedroom was, got out of there. And I wasn't going to sit it until I had a cold front. Fast forward to Thursday, which is 3 days later, and it poured rain and we were working. Just poured rain. And I thought, if it quits raining, I'm leaving work and I'm going to get in the tree. Sure enough, 2 o'clock, it quits raining. So I texted my boss. I said, they got this handled here. I'm going to the tree. Okay, that's fine. So I'm walking in, and sure enough, the sun comes out. So now it's hot, humid, hot.
Steamy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Walk in, and it's a south wind, and I'm walking right by where I think these deer are bedded. And I thought that was going to hurt me, but then people walk in there all the time.
Yep.
Climb up the tree, and I was texting Joel and just enjoying being cool. It was 10 degrees cooler inside the timber than it was in the open.
Right.
And I'm sitting there, and a deer surprised me. A young buck surprised me. He's right in the shooting lane, and I didn't hear him coming. I didn't see him coming. And I was like, holy cow, I guess I better
Pay attention.
really pay attention. So he walks off to the right, and I lost him in the thick cover because all the leaves are green and still everything is thick. He walks to the right, and I lose him. And then, I don't know, some time goes by, and it's probably, I think sunset was like 7:40 something. And I heard something in the beans to my right, and I look over and I could see that little buck looking back towards me, and then I like move and look through the trees, and I could see a deer bristled up and his ears back. And I'm like, it's September. And I moved a little more, and I could see mass. And I said, okay, I think that's one of the shooters. So tried getting the video camera in the one lane I had to shoot in.
Oh, so you're trying to film yourself as well.
Yeah. I had a video camera right here on an arm. I had a GoPro above my head, and I had my Tacticam on my bow. And I was thinking, well, he still has to turn around and come back this way. I don't know where he came out, so I couldn't hear him. And sure enough, he turns around and starts coming back. So I'm judging how far he is. And hindsight, I misjudged. He walks, I get the camera in the lane, click record, don't even try messing with the GoPro. Didn't even turn the Tacticam on.
Right.
I drew back, and there's trees that are like hanging down in this, it's like a funnel that I'm shooting through. Kneel down on my platform and draw back and try stopping him, and he doesn't stop. So then I grunted louder, and he like stopped but loaded up. And I'm thinking, you're gonna have to aim low because he is gonna react.
Yeah.
Well, I misjudged, and I also didn't aim low. 8 inches over the top of his back. He runs 60 yards, turns and looks back at me, and I was like, oh my goodness.
So now, but this was this Billy?
Yeah, this
Okay,
was Billy.
So that was Billy.
Yes. I texted Joel, and I said, dude, I just missed that deer. I just messed my chance up. Hung my bow up, knocked another arrow, and I have 11 minutes of legal shooting light left. Why I knocked another arrow, to this day, there's only one reason why. And I put my phone up, and Joel texted me back and said, you did not. What happened? And I didn't even want to respond. Hung my phone up, and I checked the Cub score. And I sat down and looked back up, and this deer is quartering away in my lane, feeding in the beans.
You never heard him come in or anything. He just showed up.
I looked up, and he's in the lane, quartering away. So I grabbed my bow. I didn't even put my hand in my wrist sling. Grabbed my bow, clicked the Tacticam on, drew back, and just let it go. And I was nervous because I thought I hit low, and little did I know he went 65 yards and
So
expired.
this time you aimed low, thinking,
Yes.
all right, I don't want to make that mistake,
Yep.
and then he doesn't have any clue.
No.
So he doesn't react.
I could have took my time, and the video camera, I didn't have the memory card slot closed, didn't record the miss. But I could have turned the GoPro on above me, and that would have got everything.
Right.
All the miss and the hit. And I had called him and called another buddy and said, I think I just shot.
You do know there's nobody out there that feels sorry for you right
No.
now. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And everybody that I told this story to, they're like, boy, I bet you're glad you missed the first one. And I'm like, he's a good deer too. I would have been tickled with him, and then like just lay it in my lap,
Right.
you know?
So now this was the first one. This was Billy's buddy.
This was Billy. Yeah, we call him NT for not today. Not today. A walker, a jogger
Right.
come by, and he turn, look, and go back in the timber.
So now give me some idea on what we're looking at there. How wide is he?
Did you hit him good?
Yeah.
He said he went 65
yeah,
yards and tipped
like,
over.
It's center punch his heart, and it come out like right in the front side of his opposite side shoulder.
Yep.
Blood everywhere.
everywhere,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I didn't hear him run. I didn't hear him going to the timber, so I thought he was standing out there. So I stayed in the tree for an hour after that, not knowing.
Didn't hurt a thing.
No. I think I have to look back, but I think he's just over 20.
I was say he looks like he's around 20 inches wide.
Yeah, maybe right at, maybe just
Yep.
over. 21? 20 and a half. Oh, yeah, you're right.
Awesome.
Get up there and show them the bases on that thing.
Oh, yeah.
You can't tell how heavy he is.
No, and people say, like, well,
Hold it
he
for
looks
1 second.
he looks kind of spindly. If you really try, I can get it around his base, but I think he carried just,
And you're 6'1", right? So
yeah, in my dreams. He was just over or just under 5 inches the whole way out.
But I think what's the most impressive thing about him is look at these G4s.
Yes.
I mean, the G4s are 7 or 8 inches long. Now, I think you said when we were talking earlier, there's nothing on here is over 12 inches on either one of them.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean,
I don't think he's got one over 11 or even 11 on here. I think he's 10 and 7/8 his longest. His beams and his mass and his fours are
Right.
what make him. And he still has velvet, and is like most deer that we see, we don't get to harvest them until October, so they're rubbed. But he's so knobby.
oh yeah. Yeah, a deer like this though, they'll wear that out
Yep.
by the time, it'll smooth off
Yep.
and everything, and it'll fill it in and it'll have a bunch, more
Yeah.
like that. Yep,
Which is really, really cool.
absolutely outstanding deer. Now, was this your biggest deer at the time?
By 40 inches.
Just by a little bit?
Yeah. And I've been bow hunting since I was 13. I'm 33 now.
So
And
20 years and it finally all comes, but
Yep.
then this one doesn't end up staying to be your biggest for
right.
very long.
And
So,
I wasn't even thinking about harvesting
Right.
another big deer. I was just beyond grateful that I was able to harvest this one.
very cool.
Mike
Any-
wants to know, what was the final score?
Gross, I haven't had him officially scored. Gross, he's 173 and 5/8.
I might know a guy that can do that for you.
I would imagine.
173 and 5. The thing
I'm
about
the
him
guy, just
is
so you know.
he's not going to lose. I mean, he's not going to have a lot of deductions because
Right.
there's just not a lot of
Yeah,
differences.
just those probably
Yep.
abnormal points.
Yeah, those are cool. Sticking in here and in here.
Right.
What a pretty deer, though. I mean, he's just a gorgeous deer.
The video that is 7 seconds long of pre-roll before, the whole thing, when I started the Tacticam and when I let the arrow go, he has his head up and then he looks and then he puts his head back down to feed, and then you see the luminoc travel, or the nocturnal.
So, who was the first person you called when you killed him?
I think it was Joel.
Was it? Mm-hmm. I mean, you ever thought about that when we kill a big deer like that? I mean, so many emotions go, and for us, we're fortunate because we always have someone sitting there with us.
Yep.
We can turn and look over our shoulder and did you see that?
Did that just happen? Yeah.
Yep. And then they're also there when you miss, though. And so now you can't even go home and like, I didn't miss anything.
Yeah, no, I didn't miss.
Yeah, because my kids are going to be the first one.
Yeah.
Won't believe what Dad did today.
Yep.
So, but I mean, I just think about those times in those trees when you've worked so hard for so long. You talked about 40 inches bigger or 30 or 40 inches bigger
Yep.
in 20 years. That had to be like, oh my gosh, I've done this.
Yes, this whole season, everything that I took into consideration about hunting a mature whitetail. Last year I was kind of in tune, and I shot we think he was 6.5-year-old 7-pointer last year, and we had very few daylight pictures of him. And I was with a buddy of mine, and I said, if that one with 2 on his right side comes in, I'm going to shoot him. And that was the first really mature deer I shot. I think I only killed 6 bucks with a bow, and three of them were 3.5-year-olds.
Yep.
And then I shot a broken up 4-pointer. It was my first deer that I killed. And then That one was my 6th buck that I killed, and this was the 7th one.
You know, I mean, I've killed a lot of deer, and I've killed a lot of spikes and a lot of fork and horns, and that's something that we want to make sure that people understand, that hunting age class deer.
Yes.
That's something you can do in Iowa. That's something you can do in some of the central Midwestern states. There's places out there you couldn't possibly try to do that if you wanted to.
No.
And I've lived in them, guys, so I get it when it comes to not living in a state where they aren't just getting, you know, if they've honestly, if you don't shoot them, someone else is going to.
Right.
You know, but this urban hunt gives these deer the ability to get older.
To grow old, yeah.
Now, did you guys happen to pull the teeth on this to see how old it was?
No. And I was going to do it with him too, but unfortunately I did not tell the tax.
Well, I would encourage everyone out there that we've started doing it, and we don't use the jaw anymore. We found a company, Matson Whitetail Lab. I think there's several other companies, and someone will probably text in or shoot a message in some of the other ones. But what they do is they just take the 2 front teeth and you pull those out. You can even send them the front part of the jaw, just cut it off with a sawzall or something, send that into them. They'll be like 95% accurate to within a few months of when that deer was born.
Really?
On whitetail deer. They do a phenomenal job. And so now we are learning, you know, this, and I think Warren would tell you, we're always saying that deer's 5 or that deer's 6. When we don't have the history with them, some of them we know, we've kind of watched them grow up.
Right.
But when we don't have the history, seems like we're always, if we guess wrong, we guess 1 year too old. Yep. And so,
I thought he was 4.5.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell when they have those summer capes on them like that.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely beautiful. I mean, he's a gorgeous deer, but I guess we got to get to the point where that one was kind of short-lived.
It was very short-lived.
So this was September
19th
that you shot this one.
And then immediately I pulled all my trail cameras out of there except for one, just because I wanted to see what kept moving through there. I pulled them all and told my brother that I would be up there September 26th. And let's go throw cameras out and see if we can find a deer for you or a deer for me to harvest. And so we went up there at a wedding, actually, and we put, I think, 6 trail cameras out. And I said, I'm not going to be here, but I need you to check these in 2 weeks or a week. Just make sure they're all functioning properly. You know, kids, he's got 2 kids also, and which Caden, his daughter, wanted me to say hi. So, hi, Caden. He couldn't get out there to check them.
Right.
So it was like October 14th, I think, is when he checked them.
Ooh, they sat there about almost a month.
Yes. And he texted me, and I was on him, texting him all the time. Did you check them cameras? Did you check them cameras? No, I haven't had time to go out there. And I said, all right, I'm just going to be that bug in your ear. I'm just going to keep telling you. So finally, I texted him, I think it was the morning of the 14th, and he said, yeah, I'm taking Caden out there. We're going to do it now. I said, okay. So I'm sitting there just waiting to hear, and he texted me, he said, yeah, there might be 2 shooters on the bottom camera. And I said, well, okay. You don't sound too pumped up or like eager to, like, oh, you got to see these. I was like, okay, well, send them when you can. And then he sent me those trail camera pictures of that deer.
Well, I think we actually have a few of these we can share and show people. Dakin, can we get to where we can see some of those if I can figure out how to get these back on the computer over there? Let's see if I bring this back over there. Let me see if I can go to full screen.
You're gonna have to move your computer.
Okay.
You can, or I can move the camera.
Or I do that.
You're good.
Now we're good. Now, what am I looking at here, Brady?
That is NT, and that's the first day that I found that he was alive.
Okay, so that's the 400-yard when you were able to see him across the bean field through your binoculars.
Right.
All right, and then we get to...
There, that is Buster last year, and I didn't learn of those pictures until after I had harvested.
So, you know, and we were talking about this earlier. Once you kill a big deer, it seems like then everyone's willing to, you know...
Yep.
Nobody wants to give up, and rightfully so. Everyone's trying to... I mean, it's not being a jerk about it or anything like that, but if you're putting in that time and effort, you don't want everyone to know that you're...
You don't want to draw more people.
Absolutely. So,
Right.
But anyhow, so this gentleman came up, coughed up some...
No, my brother.
Oh.
This is the exact same spot, just a different camera angle where we got the first ones of him this year.
Gotcha.
And he's like, oh, there's some pictures of Buster from winter. And I said, what? Because all we had were G2 and the busted off 3 and 4 in one picture. And so you couldn't tell what he was, but
Right.
here you can tell what he is. And he was even broke off more. My brother said he saw him from a deer stand one night. He was broke off all the way in front of here. Like his whole main beam and everything was broke off.
So who's he fighting with?
I don't know.
Well, here's the question I'm going to throw out there, and I don't know that we can give you a confirmed answer, but if you guys are out there watching and you're looking at this picture, how old do you think that deer is? I'll give you what I think here in a minute, but we'll wait for a few people to see what they think he is there. Now, that's 2018, correct?
Yep, that's
That would have been last year.
winter, yep.
Okay. All right. And then,
That photo is the photo that everything clicked to me, which is, we're jumping way ahead, but
okay,
That-
well, we'll come back to
yeah.
that one then.
there's last year also in the snow. And that's this deer, the last time he was alive.
That's him again out in that bean field.
It's another photo of this deer.
Gotcha.
There's the trail camera pictures.
That's a
that
buster, right? That's
These are the ones that my brother said, well, there might be a shooter.
a pretty good deer.
Yes, might be 2 shooters, he said.
What's your brother's name?
Brian.
Brian, we need you to join our app, and we're going to get you into a scoring class, or a what is it that we have this section on there that we want to put together so that we can tell the postman and the UPS guy, because those guys will either tell you they're all
Monster,
giant
yep.
or it's just a deer.
In his defense, I will defend him because he's like, well, he just looks spindly. He doesn't look massive at all. He may be 170, and I said, dude, that is a 190-inch deer, and I'll bet any amount of money on it that he'll go 190. No, really? I said, really.
The length is just crazy.
Yes. So
All
he
right,
sent me the series of these pictures, and immediately I told my wife that I'm going to apologize to you right now, because every weekend from now until the end of season or until I harvest that deer, I'm either going to make you come with, you bring the kids, or I'm going to be going up north to try to shoot this deer, because
Now, does she hunt with you sometimes?
she has.
So
It
she
was-
understood what you were talking about, right?
Yes.
You shared those photos to make it
Yes.
more convincing, right?
Yeah,
I know how that goes. Karen, does this sound somewhat familiar?
I'm
Oh.
supposed to tell you hi from Cameron Nicole.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Cameron.
All right. So we hung out there for a while there at least.
Yep. There was the picture. That's the only one we have.
Right there.
Only one we had in 2018.
Oh,
so
yeah.
we didn't
So-
know what he was.
Gotcha. You can just see that there's kind of a beam there. I mean,
Yep.
you see his beam there, but there's no G2 or G3 and G4 at all.
Right.
Man,
That's the urban deer
Yep.
again.
and
That is the deer that I missed.
Uh-oh, that's Billy, huh?
That is Catfish Billy.
Catfish Billy. Now, do you know if anyone ended up killing Billy, or is he?
I haven't checked my camera, but he was alive as of Christmas Eve. He was alive.
He's a beautiful deer.
Oh, super, super smart
Yeah,
deer.
I could see why you were like, why would you even care? I mean,
Yeah.
they're big deer, period.
Yep.
Shoot. Which-
That's both deer. That one's Catfish Billy,
Okay.
and the one
Right before that.
that is this deer.
Okay.
Inside, it's the same minute.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Oh, it's 1 minute
if you
apart.
weren't careful, you would click through your pictures thinking same buck.
Yep.
But you can definitely see the G4s are way different,
Right.
and you can see that one has kind of a hooked brow tine there.
I
you
thought
can
that
see
was
it sticking back.
I thought that was a good example of a year class of deer.
Oh, for
Because
sure.
right there you can see, I guessed him 4.5, and then the next one is his face looks more
Right.
sleek and just rougher looking rack.
Do we get any guesses yet, Dakin, on what the age of any of these deer are yet?
That is this deer. 9 days before I harvested him, still in velvet.
That had to be getting exciting when you're starting to get.
1.5 years old, Quinn Martin.
4.5 years old.
Talking about this deer, right?
I think so,
Yes. In that photo of 2018.
yeah. Yep. We can go back to that picture. We're looking at the winter picture, wasn't it?
Yep.
There
you
it
go.
is, right there. So Quinn thinks he's 4.5. Yeah, we'll
4.5 from Jose, 4 from Tom, Keith, 4.5.
everyone thinks that he's around 4, and I would have to say I think that I would say the same.
That's what I said.
I don't see a, and I'll be the first one to admit that once they hit 5.5, they could be 7 or 8. Now there's some times you can tell a deer is just really old.
Right.
But other than that, once they get to be 5.5 to 8 or 9, it's hard to tell.
Old.
They're a mature deer.
Yep.
100%. And he doesn't have that distinguishing neck muscle, and then no neck really. Their brisket kind of comes all the way up,
Right.
and then their belly kind of hangs down. And then I used to really look a lot at their gray faces and kind of gotten away from that. We've seen some deer
Oh, yeah.
in some areas that their
Face-colored
face is
deer.
gray at 3. So,
Mm-hmm.
but anyhow,
That next one in the snow of him, he looks young as well. That one.
right there.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, he definitely does there.
And he doesn't have a G5 yet.
All right, so get to this one now. So we're about a month out from when you got a deer
Yes.
to actually shoot at here.
Yep, I think it was the 14th. My brother sent me that. So then I'm starting.
14th of October.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. Might have been the 18th. I can't remember for sure, but I told my wife, sorry, but I'm gonna work my schedule so I can get up there and try hunting him.
Right.
And the first hunt that I actually had for him was October 26th and 27th, or 27th, 28th. And I went and sat a stand that, it's on a cornfield edge, all the corn was still standing. It's like 250 acres of corn and then 400 acres of timber. And it's
Right.
big valleys. And I sat, and I almost fell out of the tree stand because the tree stand has been there for a long time, and we used 2 branches to climb up the top. One of the branches broke, so it took me a lot longer to get set up with videoing stuff because I was shook.
Safety harness though?
Yep.
Good for you.
And I texted Joel and I said, he asked me if I was in the tree yet, and I said I just need a minute. I'm a little shook up. And then he asked me what happened. I told him. He said, text me when you're ready. So got set up, and I saw 2 deer that morning. But one deer came right under the tree, and he looked really old, and he was bristled up. And he was looking past me. I couldn't hear anything behind me, and you could tell that he was posturing.
Right.
And then he stopped, his demeanor changed, and he turned around and walked into the corn. Turned around and looked, there's nothing anywhere. Couldn't see any deer at all. So then a buddy of mine texted me and said, hey, I just shot a deer. I said, all right, give me a minute, I'll come over. Went and helped him, took a little longer than we thought, which is a really cool story too. But I didn't get to hunt that evening. So I pulled cards on the way in and saw pictures of Buster on the camera next to the stand that I killed him in, which I set the day that I killed him. So I sat down on the bottom after I pulled that card where we had all those pictures of him this
Right.
year, and I saw a few small deer, and I was like, it's pre-rut.
Right. Oh, yeah, no,
So
I
I
mean-
was rattling, and I thought he was bedded south and a little west of me. And I tried calling, quietly, softly, getting louder, and nothing. So I'm like, well, he's not bedded there, or he doesn't care.
Right.
So I got out of there, kind of deterred. Now I got to go another 5 days before I can hunt it again. And I don't have cell camera, so I don't know until I get there. So those pictures that I pulled on that card on the west side of the timber, I was like, well, maybe that's where I need to be set up because that's the last, MRI, the most recent information I have.
Right.
So I go up there November 1st. It's Friday. And I had a long night that night. other things, and I ended up staying up all night because of other things, and I couldn't sleep. And I actually had thoughts of passing him if I had the opportunity, because what if he is only 4.5, or what if he is 5? What could he be next year? But those thoughts quickly left my mind. Quickly left my mind. I did a pre-interview in my vehicle, which I never do pre-interviews. This is the second. This is the day. And I snapped a bunch of buddies, and I said, this feels right.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like it could happen. Did a pre-interview and told my plan. So I walked this drag rag all the way down the top of this ridge, and it's west-northwest wind, a pretty stiff one. So I dragged the drag rag in case he's east of it. And we got to the tree, and I saw a goofy buck right away. He had like 3 spikes off his left side and probably a 70-inch side on his right.
Wow.
So really weird.
Right.
So I grunted at him because I wanted to get a better look, and immediately he shied away. I was like, oh, okay, whatever. So I'm sitting there, and a couple other little bucks come by, and it gets to be like 10:45, and I said, it's not happening in the timber. And I'm in a bottom of a big timber where there's standing corn out here, and I could hear the farmer combining. It's my brother's wife's relation, uncle.
Gotcha.
And I said, it's not happening in the timber, so I need to make a choice. And I decided to pull the stand down, pull the sticks down, move the camera that was on that scrape, and I packed everything to the west side and set up. I set the stand and stuff next to a tree that I thought would work in this little finger. Went, pulled the card, set the stand up, and I got sat down at like 12:45. Going through pictures, and I seen that picture on November 1st at 3:30 in the morning, which I was in Northeast Iowa at that time. But the way that he came into that, I thought I was messing everything up because there's a northwest wind blowing right to where I thought he was bedding. And I didn't call the entire night because I didn't want him to come smelling for deer.
Right.
So I didn't see a deer until like 20 to 6, like 5:45, because the time changed that night. And I saw a little buck down in the timber, going down into the timber. Well, then to my left, this finger comes out, and there's beans, combine beans with manure spread on it to my right, and there's standing corn. Well, there's combine corn to my left, but he's combining also 300 yards away. And I was kind of wishy-washy about that. I figured, well, people say it doesn't bother them, but I haven't experienced it. And 4 does came out 85 yards to my northwest wind at 12 to 15 mile an hour. They come, and they actually take a trail through the finger that I didn't see before. Fortunately, if this deer came there, I had a lane. It's like, okay, that works really well. And I thought one of the does was grunting the whole time she was walking. I was like, is she in heat? Is this all like part of the big plan? Is he gonna come here, follow her? So now I'm super excited. And I figured, based off that trail camera picture, he took that trail. So he came from the north and checked that scrape, went back the other way. So maybe I'm in the game. Now I'm getting super, super excited because I might not have messed it up. And 4 more does came out like 10 minutes later, and they went north. So now I'm like, oh gosh, if he comes out there, please come this way.
Right.
I checked my phone, and it was like 6:05, 6:03, and I also checked the moon guide, and it said peak activity was 6:07, and I no longer was putting my phone in my pocket. And another doe came out at 85 yards, and she put her head down to feed before she come all the way out of the woods, and she looked back, and then I put my phone in my pocket and slid my hand in my grunt call, and then she went north, and I was still staring up there, and I saw his left side come out of the woods, and immediately I snort wheezed at him. And he took 2 steps and snort wheezed right back at me. And now, like, I'm shaking talking about it because I was shook then. I knew it was about 80-20. If he's snort wheezing back at me, if I make another call, I got a shot. So I made like a younger, more immature snort wheeze, and he turned and came like 15 yards and started just thrashing the brush, just putting on a show. And he did that for like, I don't know, 8 minutes. I'm thinking, I'm losing light. Like, I'm really losing light. 6:10, I think, or 6:08, I think, was sunset.
Right.
So I got a half hour. He needs to, my
Make a
camera.
decision,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, that's another thing. I had 2 GoPros on the ground that Joel lent me with a remote. on the opposite side of trails, so I could get an exit shot or I could get some footage.
Right.
Had a GoPro above me, and I didn't bring the camera arm. Everything is pointed this way. Everything, all of it. And he's at 65 yards, and all I have is my Tacticam. So I turned the Tacticam on as soon as I seen him come out, or as soon as he started thrashing the brush. And he's thrashing brush. And I snort wheeze my mouth at him. He snaps his head over, looks at the doe, and then puts his head down and starts the moose walk. And I'm like, holy cow. He comes really slowly. There's a walnut tree at like 18 yards, and there's 2 limbs. I can't shoot at like 40, and I can't shoot like 25. So I lift my seat up as he's coming in and kneel down on the platform again. And now he just needs to decide if he's going to go take that trail that I didn't know about, or if he's going to go in front of me. And he decides to go in front of me. When I draw, my rest squeaks like a horrid squeak. And I have it on video, and it is terrible. And I even almost stopped my draw cycle because there's no way he didn't hear that. And he didn't break stride, so I just kept drawing, and he cleared the walnut tree, and I grunted to stop him, and I grunted really loud. I don't know what I was thinking. But he stopped and put his head up and looked to the right, looked at me, and I let it go, and then my emotions just went nuts. I just, holy cow, as he's running straight away, and the Tacticam is still running. He runs 70 yards, and then I was like, why is he just standing there? If it's the shot that I think I put on him, he should be, expiring or getting ready to expire. And then he turns, and the tail goes up, and then he goes down, and I was like, oh my goodness gracious. Nothing worked at that point. I barely able to hang my bow up. Fingers don't work to call people, and I called Joel, I called my brother, and I called my old boss, and I'm like, I just shot that deer. They're like, Buster? And I said, yeah. Like, I cannot believe it.
You might as well pick him up, though, so that people can see.
We also had a question, 2 questions. One was, what was the urine used on the drag line?
It was actually Jinxum.
Jinxum?
Yeah, the doe and estrus Jinxum.
Jinxum for Quinn. And then Mark Coleman, you know Mark well now. He said, David is doing a great job of listening. Karen, are you seeing this?
If Karen would talk to me, Mark, more about deer hunting, then maybe I would listen better. She says that I talk to animals better. No, this is no disrespect to this deer, but this is.
I actually took a video before I moved the stand. I took a video, and I was feeling like people would think that I was ungrateful for that deer.
Right.
So I took the video, and I'm like, it may seem like I'm not gracious for being able to harvest that deer. I am beyond thankful to harvest that deer. And to have another deer that is bigger, and like that deer doesn't just get brushed under my carpet. I was elated to harvest that one, and then to harvest that one was one thing, and then to even get an eye on this deer, to see him. I've never seen a 190-inch deer in person.
Man,
Did he grow when you got up to him? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Will you give us not like a twirl girl, but will you do a full twirl for us?
I will do.
Not like a twirl girl. I have no idea what Warren just said. I don't even know what that means.
What I meant. It's like the boxing ring girls, that walk around with the round sign.
That's called a ring girl.
Yeah, those ones.
I know what ring girls are, but it doesn't make any sense to be in this conversation.
Twirl girl, that makes me think of.
And what were those beams you said, Brady?
I have to check again, but safely I think I can say 28 and like 27 7/8 or 28 and 7/8.
Show them that side view there. You can see how
This one?
ridiculously long
A 28-inch main beam. I mean, that is just.
I think his were 25, and that's. My wife told me not to leave 2 things out, and the one thing she told me not to leave out is when I went and picked this deer up from the taxidermist. It was October 28th, I think. It was inside of 30 days, I thought, but I was on my way back to Des Moines, and Joel texted me. He said, I think we need to go fishing. I said, man, I'm shot. I said, are you sure? He said, we should try. We went and tried, and I caught an 8-pound walleye in like 10 minutes. And shortly, 5 days later, I harvested this deer. So I had the first, September, October, and early November were ones that I'll never forget.
You know that if Joel was a good friend, though, he would have told you to go buy a lottery ticket, is what he would have.
I think I did, too.
Yeah, you were doing really well there.
As far as I'm concerned, I won the lottery.
Oh, my gosh.
In more ways than one.
And the thing is I don't know how many people know this, but, I mean, we didn't grow up. Our family is not from Iowa. Warren was born in Montana, and Karen and I grew up in Virginia. So I can tell you there's a bunch of people out there right now watching from the East Coast or down south, and deer like this don't exist. I don't want to say they don't exist there, because they do, but not to the quantity and not to the chance of someone killing 2 in a lifetime there.
Right.
Can be extremely difficult. So we're not trying to give anyone the idea that, my gosh, man, if you aren't out there killing deer like this, you're not doing something right. Heck no. Yeah, I don't know, you can't probably see this deer behind me, but this is one of my pride and joys, because it was my first deer with a bow and arrow.
That looks very, very similar to my first, except mine had 2 main beams, and it was 4-pointer that was busted, but I was so proud of that deer.
Absolutely. So it just is. Do you mind if I hold on to it for
Absolutely
a second?
not.
I mean, the thing is, when you kill a deer like this, though, this is what you grow up dreaming about.
Yep.
I mean, and we're all trying to kill a big deer. Don't get me wrong, I love eating deer, so we
Yep.
kill a lot of does. I kill a lot of bucks that aren't this big, because everyone's unique. And so sometimes it doesn't matter about rack size. It just matters, if they're mature, and we have some areas where it doesn't matter whether they're mature. I was dang proud of that deer there, and I've been proud of some spikes I've shot.
Absolutely.
The main thing is, and it sounds like the thing that I love, Brady, is 2 good shots, man. I mean, it sounds like both deer went down in sight or really, really close.
If I would have paid more attention, I would have saw him go down. You can see him go down in the Tacticam footage, but I didn't know that at the time.
That is unreal, my friend. I don't know how many people, I haven't met very many people that don't if they don't have the access or the ability to go hunt several states. I don't know many people that have killed 2 caliber deer like this in one season.
Right.
And especially what I love is, the working class guy. I'm doing this on the weekends.
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of people can relate to that, is that, again, we're super blessed. I mean, we're doing this for a living. Warren and I are sitting 25, 30 days, if not more. And so, but for those guys out there that only get to do this on a weekend, and even to see deer like this, you're doing something right. And man, I sure am glad that you have come here and shared all this with us, because the main reason we're doing this is to try to help other people get better themselves.
Right. And honestly, this year I got better by listening to days worth of podcasts.
Yep.
And there's so much information there, and just picking up a few things here and there, one thing a year, and it can all change. And
and I want to pick your brain a little bit about some of that stuff before we let you go.
Yeah.
I don't want to go too much longer, because people get tired of listening to me. What's that?
2 things. One, Sarah says Brady's heart just dropped hearing Dave say that.
what?
I think she was referring to the lottery tickets, but just ask people if they have questions for Brady.
Yep.
And one gentleman marked it was he asked, "What did you learn from this past season and your success from it?"
So the biggest thing that I learned is it's actually twofold. With this deer, I learned that a feed to bed pattern in early season, if you have that opportunity to do the urban thing, or if you're in a different state, like Missouri opens early, doesn't it?
Yep.
And if you have that opportunity to hunt early season, pay attention to where those deer are feeding, because it's a pattern. They may not come out in the exact same spot, but they're not going to be far from it. And this deer's a prime example. Fortunately, it was urban, where there's a lot of people walking around in there, so he wasn't afraid of a human smell. But I was in his bedroom.
Yep.
I mean, just because I observed him. That's why I wasn't picking him up on trail camera, because he changed where he was sleeping all the time, and it makes total sense.
Yeah, and I would pass I just want to add to what you just said. I've lived in 4 states, and I can tell you in all the states that I've lived in, I've hunted whitetail deer there and added some other states. It is that way for a while, you know.
Yep.
I mean, and if you have the opportunity to hunt that early September, you can pattern those deer. If you know where they're feeding, you have a good idea where they're bedding, you get in between there and you get the wind right, and you will. Sometimes it's almost like timing them.
Yes.
You know, it's almost within 10, 15 minutes, same time every day.
Deal with the heat, deal
Yep.
with the mosquitoes, because it's worth it.
No, so I think that's a huge lesson to teach someone. But go on, you said.
This deer is, it was pretty lucky, pretty fortunate that I had, very lucky, what am I talking about? But the way that I had it set up was where the trail cameras were. They were on food, and they were also on a major intersection in a bottom that was close to bedding. And I started to lose him on the major intersection by bedding, but I started picking him up more on food. And this is when it should be pre-rut,
Right.
or rut getting into, you know, early November. Everybody loves early November. And he was starting to chase does, to hang out with does by the food. Does are feed to bed.
Yep.
So if you hunt the does, I'm by no means an expert. I will not claim to be an expert,
Nor are we.
but you just take the information that you have in front of you, whether you've been paying attention to your whole life or whether you're really just starting to actually pay attention.
Both evening hunts?
Yes.
Both evening hunts. And if I remember right, Buster was real close to dark, or was that?
Both of them.
Both of them?
Both of them were they were after sunset.
Okay, so make sure you don't get out early.
How many hours for Buster?
Buster I killed him on the 32nd hour of hunting him. And it was the day that I killed him was an all-day sit. The Sunday before was an all-day sit, and then that Saturday that my buddy shot that deer that I helped him was a half-day sit.
Where is Easton and Warren? Because the all-day sit thing is something my boys still haven't learned. You know, they're going to have lunch.
Oh, no, we've learned
Before-
it. We understand it. I don't want to do it.
Before this year, this deer was my first like actual all-day sit. Like take
Then
something.
you shoot him right at dark. So what's the point of that?
I didn't know.
Right.
And the card that I had pictures of him on that finger first, I can't find it. I don't know where it is, and I know I didn't misplace it.
Well, here's the thing. I think there's a lesson in what Brady just said about, or what we were all just talking about the last few minutes, and that is making sure that when you set up your bow, then don't go too small a peep sight where you can't see through that and get the light that you need. Make sure that if it's legal to use a lighted knock, I would be shooting one.
Absolutely.
It's going to help you see exactly where that arrow hits, and then not getting out of that stand until you absolutely. You know, I mean, even when you're having that dead night, when you're like, I haven't seen a single deer, it's 10 minutes left, I'm just going to leave.
Yep.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. I mean, you just need to stick it out and wait. And the other thing is, that I'll argue the other side where Warren's saying, why bother, sit all day? Because who knows what would have happened during the day that would have caused you not to kill him at the last 5 minutes. So if you have that opportunity and it's afforded to you to be able to sit there all day, I'll sit there all day, especially if you know the deer's in the area.
That's what made it really easy to sit all day. Like it's like we said again, pre-rut, anything can happen. You know, you go from not seeing a deer to what's that noise, and you turn around and hear he's dogging a doe behind you or something. And you just never know.
So we're getting ready to do a series on scrapes and how we hunt scrapes, and we've kind of just started developing a system to that. And so you mentioned urine, and I'm not a big fan of urine. I'm a really big fan of glands.
Yeah.
And so I love hearing what other people are using, and I'm glad that someone asked, what is it? Because by no means are any of us professionals. There's not a deer out there that cares whether you've killed a whole bunch of deer or not.
Nope.
But if you can find a few techniques that work, that help someone else, and especially I think the bigger ones are the ones that don't work.
Right. And
if you can help someone not make those mistakes. I heard you say one thing though, November, and you don't feel like you're in the right spot, you moved a stand.
Yes. And
That's a huge.
at 10:45 in the morning.
Right.
On November 2nd.
I can tell you there's a bunch of people that would have been like, you just can't do it. Cannot do it.
And I'm walking, if he's bedded where I thought he was bedded, which I was 300 yards off, then I'm walking my wind right past him.
Right.
But, you know, they'll react to it differently depending on, you know, he was with a doe. And I heard a deer blowing where he came out of from that stand that I was down on the bottom. And the bottom, the wind was coming out of the south, and it's northwest wind
Right.
on the field edge. So I'm like, well, I know I'm not messing him up if he's bedded there, but a doe probably smelled me. So I didn't want to sit down there any longer and have my wind swirl around.
And there's a huge lesson, and I promise you it happens across the country, in every state, in every county, and that is there are places where the wind does not do what it is doing normally.
Yeah.
Or whatever direction the wind is. I don't care. And the weatherman actually has it right. It's blowing that direction.
Yep.
But in that spot, it's doing something different.
Completely different.
And the great thing about that, though, that you can use that to your advantage is by learning, okay, this is what it does here. I know I can go to that spot when it's doing something else, or it's always going to be out of that direction.
Right.
So, man, guys, there's a ton of things. If we'll just stop and spend the time thinking about it, and that's what we're hoping these podcasts are going to do, is help everyone start thinking about it. And like you were talking about, you know, you're picking up more knowledge from podcasts.
Yeah.
We hope people will do the same with this one.
Right.
So, Warren, what are we doing here on time? Are we doing pretty good? Any more questions?
We're about at an hour.
Okay.
So, just a couple people want to say, Scott says, heck of a season, man. Congrats. Mike says,
Thank
great
you.
work. Hard work and perseverance pays off. A whole bunch of people just telling you congrats. And Sarah also said, what's the point of sitting all day if you just shoot them at last light?
If we all
She
knew.
said JK.
Yeah,
but
if we all knew, I mean, we would all go out.
I just can't sit that long. It's for me. It's either, you know, go and take an hour break and come back, or
Oh, man,
get out, because I just can't sit that long.
where I was going was deep, and I figured there'd be a lot of movement, you know, does, bucks, everything. I figured everything would be going through there because that's on a mock scrape that I made last year
Right.
that turned huge. And deer checked it all year. Buster went by there, you know, middle of the day in December. And I went back in and freshened it up when I hung that camera. And there's still a whole bunch of deer on it. So I figured, well, I'm going deep. I'm going to sit all day. And only the 2 days I sat in there, I didn't see hardly anything. You know, 8 deer total in 2 days, full days sitting in there.
See, I've killed 2 of my biggest deer at noon,
Yeah.
straight up 12 o'clock. And so that helps because now I have confidence in that. The
Right.
other thing that's happened to me is I've seen a lot of deer at that time. I also feel like your moon phases have a little bit of
Sure.
to do with that. And it seems like full moons, I see a lot more deer in the
Yeah.
middle of the day.
Oh, yeah.
High pressure deer is when I used to see a lot of deer. You
What
know,
podcasts are you listening to?
I listen to Wired to Hunt a lot.
Okay.
Meat Eater podcast, which Mark Kenning is now in on. Knock On, and White Knuckle Productions.
Quinn was asking.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Cool. I think let's wrap it up.
Sure.
All right, so, you know, guys, we sure appreciate everyone that's tuned in. One thing that you keep in mind, if you guys have a story out there that you want to tell and that you think others could learn from it, you got to just send us a message. You can
Reach out.
Yeah, reach out and let us know, because we're going to be doing these all across all through the year here up until August.
Make sure you can come to the headquarters.
Yep, you got to be able to come to us.
Send us a message right now. If you want to come and share your story and do exactly what Brady's doing,
Absolutely.
shoot us a message. And so tell them that, because you're in front of the camera.
You know, so, and that's what we're asking, guys, is that you just get a hold of us and say, hey, look, I got a story, and I want to tell it, and we'll plan a time for you to come right here to our studio where we can do this. At the same time, we might even feed you pizza, which is what we're getting ready to do after we all get done here. And it just, again, what I love is your buddy Joel came with you.
Yep.
And before, when Joel got here, he said, hey, can we all say a prayer before we do this? And, man, seeing that camaraderie, seeing that, you know, God gave us some cool stuff.
Yes.
And trying to get other people to understand that taking the life of an animal is part of God's plan.
Yep.
And it's okay. So that's a big deal. But one of the things that we're going to give back personally is what you don't see here tonight, because we don't have it, but we want everyone to know, Tag It has made you a personalized, it is a decal of your deer.
Really?
Okay, so we've got it all cut out. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm supposed to be able to pull it back up on my computer. And Warren is going, all right,
It's on the screen.
we'll find it here. Give me a second.
Tag it decals, you said?
Tag it decals. All right, so here it is, and then I'm going to try to make it larger so that you can see this. But as you can see there is you with your deer, and there's the replication of your deer.
The decal. That's
So tag it
cool.
decals. For the guys that come in, or guys and gals, we'll take men, women, little kids, old people, we don't care. I mean,
Right.
that's the great thing about hunting is it's not a sport. You know, it's not, you can be fat, skinny, tall, short, you could be any any nationality,
Yep.
you could be anything that you want to be, and you can still do it.
Yes.
You know, so, but anyhow, we wanted to say thank you by these guys providing this with you. We also have a raised hunting t-shirt that we're going to give you.
Awesome.
And then this is going to put Brady in for a grand prize at the end of the year.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah, there's a lot of
All
stuff.
the members are also eligible.
All the members that are on Raised Outdoors will be eligible, but you guys are going to be into a separate one for something else. And then next week, you will get to see, one of the things that we're going to be giving away is an actual pedestal mount.
Oh, wow.
So the mount won't be on it, but the pedestal that you
Yeah.
can put your mount on.
Right.
So we got lots of things coming, but we just, as we were trying to get everything through hunting season,
Yeah.
because unfortunately, we didn't get to go out and shoot 2 deer like this. Warren and I killed good deer. Easton killed a good one, but we've been spending a lot more time in the trees this year.
The amount of time that I spent in the tree, it doesn't say anything for the amount of time I put in before.
Right.
And this deer was my third sit. You know, I sat the opening day, I sat the next morning, and then I didn't sit until
The
day
next
I
time.
the day I killed him.
That's awesome.
So big thanks to Minnick Red Cedar Works.
Yeah,
for
and
providing the
yeah,
pedestal.
and that's who it will be is Minnick. I want to make sure I say it. It's Minnick Red Cedar Works,
Red
correct?
Cedar Works.
Red Cedar Works. You'll be able to see the pedestal next week.
Sure.
Yeah, we're gonna put it in the comments for everybody.
Yep.
Cool.
And was there anyone else we needed to thank, Warren? Did I get everyone? I got Taggett. Man, and just everyone out there that's been watching and shoot us your questions. Tell us what you guys are looking for
Yeah.
in podcasts or in video. Because the nice thing that what we're trying to provide with Raised Outdoors is not just a podcast, but video versions of it. So we can actually show you it's working or it's not working.
Sure.
And we sure as heck don't mind showing people what's not working.
I'm right there with you.
So-
I'll show you, I mean, all your, your blemishes or whatever.
Yep.
It's a reason.
Yep.
There's a reason for it.
Well, awesome. Well, we're going to get out of here. We appreciate everyone. Brady, thank you
Hey,
again, buddy.
no,
And
thank you guys.
congratulations a ton.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. And we out?
It was an honor.
All right,
Yeah.
Deacon, you can kill us.